because so much is happening to us and you kind of just lose it all, and it's great just to sit back and just watch it back and kind of remember and like relive those moments. It's nice.
One Direction are quite simply the biggest boy band on the planet.
Kind of lucky, like our fans are universal, like in their craziness, and they're all kind of similar, even though they are from, different parts of the world.
I think it would be a mistake to underestimate the market, the interest, and the appeal of a boy band with 5 Bieber-esque contenders.
One Direction won't be the first or last band to have hugely dedicated, passionate, loyal fans, but what they're really good at is saying to the fans, we adore you, singing lyrics to them, talking to them during performances.
Right now I'm looking at you and I can't believe you don't know. You don't know you're beautiful.
We all think the fans are amazing, and the amount and level of dedication that they show is just, second to none. They're the best fans in the world.
Nothing is predictable when it comes to this band. Nobody predicted that they would have this huge success. No one predicted it would go worldwide.
Their rise to fame has been instantaneous and nothing short of remarkable.
You're on this fantastic roller coaster ride of pop, and it really is a great ride.
The reception that this band has found around the world really goes to show that they have a universal appeal, and I don't think that One Direction is going anywhere but up.
We're just so grateful to have this massive opportunity, and we're having fun and working hard, and hopefully it keeps going.
Follow the story of One Direction. Following the success of JLS and The Wanted, X Factor contestants One Direction were the next group of British heartthrobs to help revive the boy band concept. The quintet managed to outdo all of the predecessors, becoming the biggest boy band since Take That, selling millions of albums and singles, filling arenas and making movies, while hitting #1 many times over across the world with undeniably hooky songs and plenty of boy next door charm. And where many of their predecessors failed, One Direction prospered.
One Direction would not be where they were today if it had not been for the American market. It's not to say that the Brits didn't love One Direction, that they weren't popular over here, but they might have very easily, in fact, I think, gone the way of other X Factor sensations here in the UK.
Obviously, America has taken to 1D in a big way. What have the American fans been like, Niall?
Our fans are quite. Our fans are quite the same all around the world. In my best Dublin accent.
I don't think anybody who's working on the band themselves actually expected it to be what it is. They can't leave a hotel without being mobbed. I was in New York recently, and One Direction were in a hotel, and there were 70 girls camped out overnight. So if you put it on that level, you just think, okay, A, why are their parents letting them do this? But B, what are these boys going to be able to do in life? And then America has reacted completely differently to what we have. Over here, we're all about Harry Styles. In America, the Irish boy Niall has got the lucky charm, and everybody fancies him. So it's a different reaction. But anywhere they go, it's exactly the same. They're mobbed.
I think what has launched them into international superstardom is the fact that the rest of the world, America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, has reacted as if they were the Beatles, coming over, kind of taking the rest of the English-speaking world. That has launched them into the superstar stratosphere. I think there's something about the fact that British people know that this boy band group was created on a reality show, that all these boys come from very humble, normal backgrounds, It's something about the familiarity of that maybe holds them back from being hailed as the next Elvis, whereas to the rest of the world, who didn't know anything about where they came from and how they were kind of put together, they really are like the Beatles, and sort of the mystery around them is actually helping them, I think, in the other countries.
With the rapid rise of social media, the members of One Direction are able to be in constant communication with their adoring fans.
We were desperate for a boy band. We were desperate for some entertainment. I mean, take it back 15 years. We all loved Take That. And then we had a bit of Five and a bit of Boyzone. But if you look at Take That, they were the Marks and Spencers of pop. And if you look at Boyzone, they were like the little oldie version. So now, there was no competition. The field was wide open. And I think it's down to young girls who follow them on Twitter, getting social interaction via Facebook, and really old-fashioned fan base. If you like the look of the boys, you're going to invest in them. And that's what's happened.
The moment they came off X Factor in the UK, there were kind of teenage girls globally who'd got wind of the fact that there was this quite good-looking band in the UK. They started watching them on YouTube, they followed them on Twitter, and then that's how this network of incredible fans begins who are obsessed with finding out their every move. And One Direction are not stupid. They've got their whole kind of social networking campaign. There's somebody in charge of social media from the One Direction management team. They've all got their own Twitter accounts. It's how they make sure that they appear that they're really close to their fans. So they'll retweet things, they'll really engage with them, and that is something so powerful that once upon a time pop stars never had. It means that the fans really believe that they are connecting with these idols and they stand a chance of going out with them.
And they've all got millions of followers. They're all making sure that, when the single comes out, it's instantly spread across the world. You can't underestimate the amount of power that these boys do have.
It means that Harry could get off a plane and thousands of fans will know exactly what time he's going to have tea at his mum's house, and they will be there waiting outside. They almost seem to know what One Direction are doing before One Direction know themselves. It's amazing, the network and how they just share this information. Quite scary, in fact. I've seen on Tumblr some fans just kind of tweeting pictures of Harry. I think he was in LA and he was in a hotel, like at the hotel pool, and this fan looked like that she was in the bushes and she was just tweeting different pictures of him topless. He's walking across there, he's going to the toilet, and then just posting it live on Tumblr so everyone can watch what he's doing at that moment in time.
All of these things have propelled this group whose fans are primarily young people who are kind of obsessed with social media into the stratosphere. It's Justin Bieber times a million. It's exponentially grown. As social media has grown exponentially, and Justin Bieber was just a kid on YouTube. Now there's about 10 different websites that you can, use to promote someone. It's extraordinary, and I think One Direction really epitomizes the power of that medium.
And also, you can't underestimate the power that the fans have. If any girl goes near one of those boys, then they're on Twitter, they're in trouble, because those One Direction girls and those fans do not take any prisoners. So if you're out there and you're going to go near one of the guys, watch out, because you're going to get some abuse.
Everything. They all have their individual personalities and that they're all different.
And they're amazing singers.
And they're really good singers and they're really good looking. And they let their personalities show when they're singing and when they're
fit. No, well fit.
Well fit. I like Harry.
I like Zayn.
Harry, I love you.
Zayn.
There's one for each of you.
Yeah.
So how was it meeting them?
Amazing. We were first in the queue.
Yeah.
I think 5 hours.
At 12 o'clock today. I had to get the train up from Kent. We had to get the train up, and I was ringing my parents in the middle of town on the phone, almost in tears, oh my God, I need to go to London, and I had to persuade them. It was so hard to persuade them, and then eventually they're like, yeah, you can go. I was like, oh my God, so we got the train up here. We literally had to run from the tube station to get here.
God, Laura.
So how did you guys hear about it, and when did you? So you heard through Twitter, and
I love it here.
Yeah. So where were you when you heard?
McDonald's. We were eating lunch at McDonald's.
So how's it feel? How's it feel now, just so randomly today that you've met them?
Amazing. We didn't expect to, and then just random. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much, girls.
Thank you.
With a little help from social media along the way, One Direction have been propelled to international fame, and their 3 albums, Up All Night, Take Me Home, and Midnight Memories have broken records, topped charts in most major markets, and generated smash hit after smash hit. Their achievements include 4 Brit Awards and 4 MTV Video Music Awards, among many others.
And obviously up for the award with artists like Adele and Mumford & Sons as well. Do you feel that UK music, and in your case now Irish music, is really doing well around the world, Harry?
Yeah, I think especially this year it seems to have been just a massive year for British music. I think, you know, Adele, Mumford & Sons, Ed Sheeran, they've all had huge years, and we're very honoured to be part of that, and it's nice that kind of tonight that's celebrated, because this year it seems to have been especially kind of big for British music, so it's great. It's, you know, we're happy, so it's great.
And have you enjoyed tonight? Has it been a fun night, apart from just winning, of course, in general?
Yeah, tonight has been amazing. It's just so you know, I stood this awkwardly because I was trying to smuggle the Brit. Liam's got one, so they don't know. Oh, there we go. Look, see, look. I'm gonna read that. Yeah, it's been a great night. It's been great performing, and obviously to win an award is just huge.
And what's the One Direction plan now? You've won another Brit Award. What's happening over the next few months?
This was a good start to the week, because on Saturday we open up our world tour here at the O2, so it's gonna be a great year. Why'd you whisper in my ear? So yeah, and that doesn't finish till November, and he's telling me to say I'm Irish. We've got the movie coming out and the world tour, and I love Ireland, and it's going to be a very exciting year.
And finally, Zane, can you tell us a little bit about the song that you performed tonight?
Both mics.
It's a very special single, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a charity single, obviously, a cover of the classic Blondie tune, One Way or Another. And yeah, we're just massively honoured to be a part of it, and we're just loving the fact that we get to do something amazing for such an amazing cause.
Well done tonight, and huge congratulations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
After the release of 2013's Midnight Memories, One Direction became the first band in the US Billboard 200's history to have their first 3 albums debut at #1. Midnight Memories was a global success, debuting at #1 in the UK Albums Chart and became the biggest-selling album worldwide of 2013. To understand the true magnitude of One Direction's epic story, we have to go back to the beginning, to where it all started. In 2010, Niall Horan, Zayn Malik, Liam Payne, Harry Styles, and Louis Tomlinson auditioned as solo candidates for the 7th series on the British version of The X Factor. They all failed to progress to the boys category. However, this wasn't to be the end of their X Factor journey.
Well, X Factor, as we know, is the biggest show possibly now in the world. When all the boys of One Direction first came on, you did kind of think, they're not solo material, he won't do well, he's cute. You kind of went through them all in your mind.
It's just phenomenal to think that this powerhouse group that is taking the world by storm were actually not good enough as individuals to even make the show, let alone win the show. They weren't even good enough to get a spot on the show. And I don't know if they've sent Nicole Scherzinger flowers yet or not, but they certainly ought to, because at the time, Nicole Scherzinger from the Pussycat Dolls was a judge on the X Factor, and it was she who decided to take these boys who all had great potential on their own but weren't quite good enough as solo artists and put them together in a boy band supergroup. It was her idea, and it was an absolutely, obviously, genius plan.
Simon Cowell had the groups in his category, and One Direction made it through to the final, so they ended up coming 3rd behind Rebecca Ferguson and Matt Cardle. And you just have to look at what has happened to them to realise they really should have won the show.
I met the boys all the way right at the beginning, so I'd be down at X Factor, hanging out with the judges, meeting all of the contestants, and you get introduced to them, you'd hang out with them. And One Direction backstage were an absolute nightmare. Anyone behind the scenes on X Factor was just like, oh my God, we've lost Harry, we've lost Louis, where have they gone? You know, that one's hiding in a cupboard, that one's trying on new clothes. They were the life and soul of X Factor that year. So it was a really exciting time to be with a band that you knew were going to go places.
So I always thought the hopes were very, very high that with the right development and the right friendship, they could go through. And actually, it was really when I saw them behind the scenes at the X Factor as the live shows developed that you could really tell that they had formed a bond and that they were like brothers. Because interestingly, the judges had also put together a girl group on the show that year called Bellamy. And Bellamy were the exact opposite to One Direction. They hated each other, they didn't get on, there was no good bonding between them. And you could tell, and the viewers could tell, and I think the viewers got behind One Direction, they didn't get behind the girl group.
I think all the way through the X Factor, you saw One Direction just grow and grow. In terms of their confidence on stage, their popularity, the screams in the studio when they came on stage were just kind of deafening, much bigger than the screams for anybody else. And even when you're watching it at home, because obviously X Factor is a real appointment to view, so people gather around their telly, they'd have X Factor nights, and everyone was talking about One Direction, whatever age they were. So you'd have really young girls, they'd all have a One Direction member that they really liked, and then you'd have people in their kind of 40s, grams, loving One Direction. A lot of older women were obsessed with different members of One Direction, and the great thing about it was there was something for everyone.
The time was very right for One Direction. There wasn't another boy band. We were all in the showbiz industry itching for another boy band to come through. JLS were on the down low. You had the girl groups that had all had huge success. But the time was perfect. And I'd be very surprised if someone like Simon Cowell, in the back of his head, didn't have the plan from the start. He's a very astute guy. And 5 young boys after the back of Justin Bieber, it was obviously going to be a huge money spinner.
Now, bear in mind, Simon Cowell has spent an awful lot of time working in the United States. He spends at least half the year there, if not more, and he has a very good sense of what the American market is looking for. The fact that when One Direction finished the UK X Factor, coming in 3rd, and Psycho immediately signed them for a £2 million deal, says to me that Simon Cowell was already thinking of the American market and the potential therein. Simon Cowell does not miss a trick, and I think another producer on the show might have thought, okay, this band did just maybe all right in the UK. Their single debuted at number 2, not number 1, and other groups, other individuals like Matt Cardle had a bit more momentum, Rebecca Ferguson, but Simon Cowell saw from the very beginning that this band could explode across the pond, and it certainly has.
Justin Bieber had his little moment. Obviously, he'd been a massive success around the world. Then you had 5 Justin Biebers. Could it get any better? It just couldn't. They were cute, they appealed to every single different girl that wanted to fancy one of them. They had the right music, they worked with the right people. It was a package. And then teamed together with the fact that you've got Facebook, Twitter, all of these social networks. The timing was just perfect for them to break through.
After the band had come in 3rd place on the X Factor, they wasted no time in hitting the studio to record their debut album. One Direction's debut single, What Makes You Beautiful, released in September 2011, reached number 1 in the UK single chart after becoming the most pre-ordered Sony Music Entertainment single in history.
I remember the anticipation around that single was quite incredible. The music press, every press was just waiting to hear it. And it actually was first released on YouTube, and you didn't see the video to start with, so you just saw the kind of lyrics play up. And actually, that's where part of the skill came in the marketing of One Direction, because this fever was really building. And the lyrics for What Makes You Beautiful are exactly part of the appeal of One Direction, because they really tap in to what young girls are thinking and what they want these guys to be saying back to them. So it's like, you know, you don't need to have any makeup, it's what's inside that counts, all the cheesy stuff that every girl wants to truly believe One Direction thinks about them. So it was a really powerful marketing campaign, just releasing some of the lyrics and not seeing any of the video footage to start with. And it broke pre-order sales for Sony, so it was incredible.
Well, one of the things I love about the song is that it's so catchy. It's bubblegum pop, you know, it's a really positive song with a message about how beautiful this girl is who isn't aware of her own prettiness. I mean, it's about as affirming and up as you can get. And also in the video, you know, they just kind of had the words over and over again, and it was also very clever because nobody recognized these boys' faces at that time. You know, they weren't well-known faces, so they really made the video all about the song at that time, and I thought that was very clever as well.
If you look back at One Direction's debut video, the video for What Makes You Beautiful, I mean, they look so different to the band we now see today playing arenas around the world. They were fresh-faced, they were so young, kooky little haircuts, linen look, very pastel, looked like something you might get in a Gap commercial. They were frolicking on the beach, they were enjoying being out in the outdoors, they were doing some traveling down a road in a Jeep, they were exploring the mountains, and they were having basically pop fun with the pastels. But it was the perfect video. It was massive on social media, fans loved it, and of course it helped the single, more importantly, hit #1.
Their entire career hinged on whether this song was going to be a hit or not. And it was just an instant huge pop classic. It really was. Incredibly clever that they'd sampled one of the songs from Grease, because it meant that instantly people were pulled in and connected to the song. But you know, find me someone who says that that What Makes You Beautiful is not a catchy song.
It has a very strong, not very subtle, psychological message, which is, I want you. Do you want me? I want you. You're amazing. And I think that was very much a part of their initial image in getting young girls to like them. They seemed very accessible. They seemed like you could date one of them. You know, they didn't seem to be arrogant or haughty in any way, and I think that was a big part of their initial success.
And actually, compared to most boy band albums, what really struck me about the album is that most of the songs on the album could be released as singles. So what you get with boy bands usually is you have 5 songs which are going to be released as singles from the album, and the rest are just absolute fillers and throwaway tracks. Whereas with the One Direction album, actually there's an argument that you could release any of those songs and they would go up the charts.
I think with Up All Night, Simon took no chances. Simon and Psycho decided they were going to be teamed up with the right people. It was their moment to shine. Ed Sheeran, Kelly Clarkson, you know, they really got all of the big guys in the business to get together and ensure that this album was going to be, you know, a huge launch pad. And they weren't just thinking the UK, they were thinking worldwide. Australia, Asia, everywhere was very important. It was the album that they took no risks on.
And I think that was very savvy, again, because it gave kind of them an instant credibility and an instant name recognition in terms of fans of, you know, Kelly Clarkson. Obviously, these boys were good enough to sing with her. Bear in mind, Kelly Clarkson owes Simon Cowell a few favors because she was the winner of American Idol several years ago. So Simon clearly wasn't afraid to call in some favors in making this album, and it definitely paid off.
For a debut album, the success of Up All Night for One Direction is just quite incredible. Debuted at #2 in the UK, it went straight to #1 in 20 countries, and the biggest mark of their success was the success in Canada and America, because it was the first UK act ever to get its debut at #1 in the Canadian charts and the US Billboard 200, and that was when everyone knew this band was something very special.
I mean, who else has done that? Well, nobody. One DFN The Benchmark. That's quite an incredible chart feat. It's gone on to sell over 2.7 million copies in the UK and just set them up to become the global phenomenon we all know and love.
One Direction's single "Gotta Be You" was actually something you could imagine on a Take That album. It had a little bit more maturity to it, but really kind of bore all the marks of a very already successful band. I mean, this was only their second single, and it was just something that you would just hum along to, and you'd hear it on the radio, and you'd feel like this band had been around for ages.
Simon's intent from the very beginning was to turn this self-made boy band into international sensations.
At the 2012 Brit Awards, One Direction shocked the music world when they won the award for Best Single.
Yes. First of all, we would like to thank every single person that voted for us. The fans around the world have been absolutely incredible to us since we told them that we got nominated for a Brit. And it's an absolute pleasure to collect it. And just thank you very much.
I was just a couple of tables away from them on the night, and when it was announced that they had won Best British Single, they were happier than I'd ever seen them. It was a huge celebration for the band. There was a lot of wine, a lot of beer on the table. They really were out to party that night, and I don't blame them.
Well, I think what surprised the world at the Brit Awards was that this was really Adele's night. You know, she had swept the awards, and Adele had just been feted at the Grammys, where she had been kind of hailed as the reigning queen of singing. So the fact that anyone beside Adele won anything that night was a surprise. The fact that One Direction won Best Single over Adele really goes to show kind of the power of their fan base at this point. You know, while most people in the world would probably agree that Adele has perhaps a superior vocal quality, or maybe she's won more Grammys, you cannot deny the popular appeal of this band. And the fact that so many people enjoyed their music of all ages absolutely came through that night at the Brit Awards. And I think the band was as surprised as anybody else in the audience that they won, but that doesn't make it any less deserved.
Guys, I'm hosting this press conference. Hello. Well done for that, by the way. Well done.
Thank you, thanks.
Now, who's going to get the award at home?
We're going to break it into 5. We decided earlier on, we're going to break the award into 5 and smash it.
Either that or photocopy it, I think.
So who gets the head?
I want the head.
Well, I guess you've got the head.
Harry's going head.
You've just announced... Hey! Guys, you've announced you're about to go on tour again.
Yes, our tickets go on sale on Saturday for our UK and Ireland arena tour. We've just come off a tour, so it's absolutely very exciting to announce that we're going back on tour, so it's going to be fun. We're going back on tour in February and March, and the tickets come on sale on Saturday.
I think at the Brit Awards, when One Direction were nominated, everyone was kind of like, well, with all of the fans that they've got behind them, they've got to stand a really good chance of winning. Musically, lyrically, was it the best song? I think when it was announced, everyone went, well, that was obviously going to happen, but come on, there were much better songs in that category. When you're going up against the likes of Adele, you know, which have got huge songs that have gone global as well, you just think, all right, you One Direction fans did the job. You got your votes and they got the award.
They are always incredibly appreciative about where they've come from. So even though they're now in this incredible position where they're international stars and they have fans all over the world, they're actually surprisingly humble, down to earth, and appreciative about the experience. And I think the key thing for them and what they're very focused on is having a long career. So now they know they've had this success now, but they want to elongate their career and be around for years and years.
What part of your life is still normal?
Us.
Not this part, definitely not this part.
Sleeping.
Yeah. I think, you know, for, you know, we're 18, 19, 20 years old. Like, people like us don't get to do stuff like what we're doing very often, and we just feel so grateful to, you know, all the fans who've put us where we are, all the you know, radio, music channels who've helped us along the way, and you know, we're just so grateful to have this massive opportunity, and we're having fun and working hard, and hopefully it keeps going.
And if you could snog any artist in the room tonight at the Brits,
Adele.
who would it be?
Niall Horan.
Who?
Adele.
Me.
Adele.
Said me.
Definitely Adele.
Rihanna.
I might try it on the way back.
Rihanna's looking hot in that dress tonight.
Okay, well, gentlemen, thank you very much. If you could hold your Brit up again for everybody. And
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
Shabba!
Thanks again.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I think it did take a few people by surprise, but it really just cemented them as such a powerful presence on the pop scene. And they were so overwhelmingly excited. I think people were watching them thinking, are they going to be drinking too much? Are they going to, because you know, they're 5 really young boys, and they did very well to kind of contain their excitement and not be too badly behaved. They've obviously got a lot of people watching them and saying, do not go off the rails, because otherwise it's going to look bad for us. But they were genuinely so excited, jumping up and down, and you couldn't help but be pleased for them. But obviously we have to remember, it wasn't given to them by the Brits board. This was a fan's vote, so this was a listener's vote, and that is why they got it.
To top off a fantastic year for the 5 boys, One Direction were asked to perform What Makes You Beautiful at the closing ceremony of the 2012 Olympic Games in London. It was a unique and fantastic opportunity for One Direction, and they grabbed it with both hands.
Some of the biggest names in UK music got the chance to perform at the London 2012 Olympic Games, and for One Direction to be invited cemented their pop authority and cemented the fact that they had become pop royalty in the world.
Because suddenly they were playing to the world, that's no understatement. And to be chosen to do this, you had to, really have proven yourself.
I mean, not everyone got the chance to perform at that show, and they played a very integral part when they performed What Makes You Beautiful on the back of a moving truck. Who else got to do that? It helped as well in the handover to the Brazil Games in 2016, so they had a vital role to play.
They're used to thousands, tens of thousands of girls screaming at them in arenas all over the world, but it's all quite concentrated. Here they were playing to a global audience, and they must have known at that point that, yeah, they'd arrived.
And I know from speaking to them after they played at that Olympic Stadium, after they played that huge concert, that it meant so much to them. They admitted to me that they were incredibly nervous beforehand, but wow, they nailed their performance, and a lot of people were talking about it afterwards.
The Olympics closing ceremony was about showcasing the best of British pop acts, and then you had the models like Kate Moss strutting up and down the catwalk, and it was the cream of British culture right now, and that's exactly what One Direction are. And their marketing has been so clever, because in America there are red buses and red telephone boxes in their videos, and there's this real almost kitsch culture of the UK. They're flying the British flag, and everyone knows them for it.
Along with the hugely successful Olympic performance, another reason for One Direction's astronomical fame is the band's merchandising operation. One Direction books, poster, and calendars are sold in stores all around the world.
Simon Cowell and his team have undoubtedly learned every trick in the trade, and no sign is clearer of that than the One Direction books and merchandise that is surrounding them. That is how you make your money as a pop star. So One Direction have already had about 3 books out in the space of 6 months. They had One Direction Forever Young, which was their first official book on the back of X Factor. That came out straight after X Factor. And it is worth noting that I don't really think there was a successful book for Matt Cardle, who was the winner of X Factor, or the runner-up, Rebecca Ferguson. It was One Direction. Simon Cowell got the book out within the space of about 3 days. That went to #1 in the Sunday Times bestseller list, which is quite incredible. They've since had 2 other books out, so they've had their official album, and then they've had One Direction Dare to Dream, which is a collection of unseen photos and a private look into the world of One Direction. The hardback of that has already gone to the top of Sunday Times bestseller list, and it just shows that you just have to kind of drip feed little new tidbits of information, new merchandise. You only need a new cover and a few new pictures, and you can sell it for $12.99 and make a load of money.
I don't actually think since the Spice Girls there's been a band that has been able to use merchandise as much as what One Direction have. Their calendar is one of the biggest selling calendar of all time. They've got book deals coming out of their arms. Their got a huge deal with HarperCollins. They've got Dolls coming out. It is endless. And obviously this is where a band like One Direction are going to make the majority of their money. The music industry itself won't make them a lot. The tours and the merchandise that they sell is what's going to make them into One Direction millionaires. So it is extraordinary to have these 5 boys who we all used to hang out with backstage at X Factor and would be larking around, now being flown over to America where they're mobbed everywhere, and now they're dolls. I mean, you just couldn't write a story like this.
You have Nokia phones that they launched where they have all kinds of, wallpaper pictures of the boys, as they're getting ready to go on stage. Special things for fans, special messages.
For me, when you were younger, my first phone was a Nokia.
Yeah.
So Nokia, they've got the history. Nokia have always been a safe, good option for a phone. And you never hear about Nokia's breaking, ever.
No. Never lose signal.
Just saying.
It's extraordinary, but the merchandising is where these boys will be making most of their money. Bear in mind, when you're a young artist, a new group, even if you sign for £2 million, it doesn't necessarily mean that you get a huge percentage of that. There's all kinds of people to pay off, and if you haven't written your own songs, it doesn't matter how high they go in the charts, there's no extra money for you. Artists generally tend to get better deals their second and third record deal. The first one, they tend not to come out so well. With all this merchandising, however, the boys presumably would be getting a share of some of that because of their image, and that certainly will help. There were also a lot of rumors in the press that after the boys did so well in the US, Simon gave each of them £2 million as a bonus. So it was a £10 million gift to the group. And I think there is, while that figure may be exaggerated, it certainly seems very likely that Simon Cowell would have rewarded them in some way. He's no fool, and he wants to keep them signed to his label, undoubtedly for a very long time. There were also rumors that once the boys hit America, they had been given a very strict edict: no drinking, no smoking, no drugs, no staying out late, and no hooking up with anonymous women, because of the fact that there was this kind of morals clause immediately enforced in their contract. The American audience that loves One Direction is looking for very clean-cut images, and they don't want some kind of wild Russell Brand type emerging. And I think they did very, very much everything they could, regardless of what the boys are really like in real life or what they might have wanted to get up to keep them on the straight and narrow, which of course they did. I think in the case of One Direction, particularly with their American audience, Simon Cowell and the other people around them are going to be very careful to make sure that they don't step out of line and they don't get involved in some drugs or sex scandal. They want these boys to be as clean-cut as their fans would like them to be.
In mid-2012, One Direction revealed that a follow-up release to their debut album, Up All Night, was in development. Sure enough, the album titled Take Me Home was released on November 9th, 2012 by Sony Music Entertainment.
By the time One Direction released their second album, Take Me Home, the Directioners were at fever pitch to get anything and everything from this band. They were the biggest selling pop phenomena of 2012 worldwide. Besides Adele, they really owned and dominated the charts around the world. I mean, wherever they went, South America, Europe, Australia, the USA, Canada, you name it, One Direction was selling records and selling out arenas as well with their incredible tour. So of course, the album instantly debuted at #1 in the UK. It broke records when it debuted at 1 in America. It became the fastest selling album of 2012, hit #1 in 34 countries, and of course, stayed there for a number of weeks in most territories. In fact, it was the #1 digital album of Q4, the last 3 months of 2012. Kids and young kids at heart everywhere wanted that album under the Christmas tree.
For their album Take Me Home, Simon Cowell basically put it out there and said to the best producers in the world, if you want to work on this, then come ahead. And it's like somebody getting a plumber around to their house taking all the quotes. All of a sudden, there was a queue of the best producers in the world, which, you know, for One Direction is astonishing because they came from this manufactured pop talent TV show background, and you would have been laughed out of court if you'd have said in a year's time you will have the best producers in the world fighting tooth and nail to produce for them. And it's because they're so big. Not just because they're so big, they are the whole package. They have the looks, they have the talent, and everyone wants to be associated with them.
Live While We're Young was released as the lead single from the album and unsurprisingly went on to achieve chart success on a global scale.
Live While We're Young is a hugely anthemic song. It captures the mood of the band and their fans as well, celebrating being young. And it's a great pop song. And when compared to something like What Makes You Beautiful, which was, you know, their first huge single, it's definitely as good, perhaps arguably more anthemic and more memorable. The video for Live While We're Young shows the boys at a festival just being young guys having a ball. Ironically, they can't really do that now. Harry Styles, Zayn Malik goes down the street, they're followed by paparazzi, and sometimes they really do wish they could have more normality in their lives. Sure, they wouldn't change the jet set lifestyle and the success they've had in the number ones, but there is an element to not being able to go down the pub and just have a pint with a couple pals.
Here's a song all about going crazy, crazy, crazy. That's what they did by basically having their own like mini outdoor festival. They chose a field, a location in the southeast of England in the county of Kent. It was all secret, hidden away from view, although a few paparazzi, I happen to know, found the location. They hid in the bushes with their long lenses trying to get the shot, a candid opportunity, but they were removed by One Direction's security detail. So they erected several tents, they brought in all their best mates, they lit a barbecue, they basically found a little bit of water which they got involved with, they bombed in there, they swam, they took their tops off, they went crazy. It looked like the sort of festival you wanted to be invited to, and of course, what happened? They released it on all the social media channels and their fans went crazy. It was the perfect video for a perfect song.
Let's go crazy, crazy, crazy till we see the sun. I know we only met, but let's pretend it's love. And never, never, never stop for anyone. Tonight, let's get some and live while we're young.
Live While We're Young was a huge hit. On YouTube alone, it had over 200 million hits, and it was a top 10 single all over the world. And they proved that the myth of having that tricky second album, well, they just blew it away, and they're nailing it all the time. Huge albums, huge success, huge following, everything's going their way.
With the successful release of Take Me Home, One Direction were now established as the biggest music act on the planet. Everywhere they went, One Direction were followed by paparazzi and mobbed by hundreds of screaming fans. And when Harry Styles started dating one of Hollywood's hottest stars, the story made headlines all over the world.
When Taylor Swift and Harry Styles got together, there was a feeling that, not that he was punching above his weight, you know, they're huge, but Taylor Swift is up there. Everyone knows who she is. And she's a few years older, and she's nailed it. She's nailed her solo career, and you can't take that away from her. She's got a solo career, whereas he's still part of a band. So when she started dating him, it was like a real credibility check for him. You know, Taylor Swift's interested, that's good. Did both their careers a lot of good, but there was a lot of jealousy towards Taylor Swift from the girls. One Direction fans are pretty passionate. So I think that it looks like Taylor Swift gets around a bit because she dates quite a lot of guys. But you'd have to say that she also tries to come over as quite virginal. And I think with Harry, it was the first bad boy she dated. The first guy who liked her, but saw the world as being a bit of a candy shop and he could just have his pick. And he was not stopping at Taylor Swift.
Despite the fact that Harry has dated some of the USA's biggest female stars, it's in fact Niall Horan who is seen as the standout member of One Direction. and is by far the most popular through the eyes of the Americans.
Niall is probably the most talented of the group, and actually he's the biggest success in America, far bigger than Harry Styles, who is the standout in the UK. And he's often known as the Irish Justin Bieber in America, and they really take to his accent, his looks. He's got the boyish blonde looks.
Niall is undoubtedly the most popular member of One Direction in the United States of America. I mean, they literally go crazy for Niall. It's interesting, in the UK, the media, the tabloids love to focus on Harry. They'll talk about Louis and his love of football. And of course the band get talked about everywhere in the world because they are the biggest selling pop act. But in the USA, Niall is undoubtedly the most popular member of the band. I've seen them live several times. I saw them live at Madison Square Garden in New York, and the amount of banners that fans had with them for Niall, photos of Niall, presents for Niall, he really is loved by his American fans, and I know deep down, I think he secretly loves that.
He was the one, when I saw his audition initially on TV, before this band had been formed, he was the one who I thought instantly massive commercial appeal, because he looked like Justin Bieber and he had that Irish accent, which I think people just find very endearing, and he obviously had a load of female fans from that point too. And he'd been described growing up as a Justin Bieber type character. He'd loved singing Michael Bublé. He actually is the one that's probably the most musical, in the sense that he always loved playing the guitar. And Niall, actually, he was initially, I mean, I always felt he was the youngest in the band, in terms of maybe the least mature. However, as I've got to see them develop, he's actually become a very sensible, level-headed guy, probably the most polite out of all of them as well, incredibly charming, incredibly down to earth. So, and actually has a huge fan base, and a lot of the older ladies like Niall as well.
The only thing is that I do think that in time to come, because he is so musically talented, may want his own solo career, and I think he really could do it, because the Americans back him so much. But it's great for One Direction to have somebody there who's so musically gifted, because he can always, you know, if the producers all walk away from them, he can be writing the lyrics and really be the credibility behind them.
Just as they did at the 2012 Brit Awards, One Direction won big at the 2013 Brit Awards. This time they won the Global Success Award.
Please welcome a band called One Direction!
Thank you.
Who? Hi, One Direction. Here they come.
Oh. Hello, you. Where's the video?
If you don't mind walking forward a little bit.
Where's you?
Hi, Niall. Hi,
Where are you?
down here, down
Steve
here.
Enns. How's it
One
going?
Direction, huge congratulations. This is the Brits Global Success Award. You have sold 9.5 million albums. You've played in pretty much every country around the world. Harry, let's start with you. What's been your favourite country to play in as 1D?
Do you know, I think it's always nice coming home and playing here in England, or Ireland in Niall's case, is always nice. I think, I don't know, this award is crazy. We're absolutely blown away. So, oh, it's not here. This award is absolutely crazy. Just thank you so much. It's incredible. Thanks.
The hugely anticipated film, One Direction, This Is Us, was released in August 2013, billed as an intimate, all-access look at life on the road for the global music phenomenon.
Pick a seat, boys. Yeah, cuddle up beside me, Liam.
Good morning.
Testing, 1, 2, hello.
How is everybody? Tired. Good.
The transfer
Late
window's
night?
now closed, and we did
Out on
sign
the
Louis
town?
Tomlinson.
Any interesting stories?
Anyone got any
All
jokes?
comfortable, Morgan? Good.
This Is Us is the latest cherry on the cake. That's the film about the boys, and it's brilliant because girls want it. Oh my goodness, there are legions of fans, millions of them around the world who really buy into it, and you feel like you're getting that behind the scenes look. which is wonderful. It's a bit like the Monkees were in the 60s, where they had their own TV show, and you really saw them japing around, having fun. And I hear that it really gives an insight into the ups, but also the downs.
We just want to show what we're about, and with like social media and stuff, there's only so much you can get across in terms of your personality, and social media and like 10-minute interviews that you do with people. So I think for a way for us to get across what we're like and what we're like with each other, for the fans to see. And I think that's the kind of stuff that they want to see, is like the behind the scenes stuff. And, we just wanted to make a lot of that.
And, the fact that they're the biggest selling act on planet Earth, it was only right that they would basically take a movie and release it in the cinema. In the first week, it took $60 million worldwide at the box office. It became the #1 grossing concert movie of all time.
That you suddenly realize that it isn't just a British or an American phenomenon, that once they get outside of the country, everywhere they go, they're being chased by hordes of fans. We were in Mexico City and there's 5,000 people camping outside the hotel. I mean, this is such a massive global phenomenon, and it's only growing. I mean, it was incredible to witness and see.
I remember covering the premiere in Leicester Square. They had several premieres around the world, but the Leicester Square premiere in London was incredible, when over 10,000 fans turned up to catch a glimpse of the 1D Boys on the red carpet.
Kind of lucky, like our fans are universal, like in their craziness, and they're all kind of similar, even though they are from, different parts of the world.
It was less about seeing stuff that we didn't like and think, oh, we really don't want that in. It was more kind of pulling stuff that we remember doing that we really wanted in. So it was kind of hard. I don't think we realised how hard it'd be to kind of get that cut where you kind of have to lose things that you want to put in, because it's all just such great footage that there's just loads of it.
And it was a very clever, poignant film as well. It gave fans access to the boys backstage. We saw them being, genuine and real, interacting with each other. They were very honest and candid on camera, and of course then we got to see them performing as well. It was a massive hit for Sony Pictures. It went to #1 around the world, and of course, come Christmas, it was the #1 best-selling DVD that year.
Well, we've just come back to work today after having a bit of time off, and it's so funny that the first time we walk into a room, the loudest person in the room is always Louis. He's always got some sort of story to tell, so that's quite fun. First thing I got up to this morning was, oi, oi, from Louis. So, no, we definitely miss each other on time off, and I mean, we spend a lot of time with each other on our time off as well, if the occasion arises.
And also, probably the only con about what we do is that we don't get to go home often, so it's kind of nice that we do get little bits of time to go home, and yeah, we actually do spend quite a bit of time with each other during our time off as well. But yeah, going home is a good thing. It's
but
nice.
You're always looking forward to coming back, to be fair, because
You go home for a
I've
few
always
days.
got a story to tell anyway, but obviously I'll have to tone that down from now on.
He didn't mean that.
Because so much is happening to us, and you kind of just lose it all, and it's great just to sit back and just watch it back and kind of remember and like relive those moments. It's nice. It's cool.
Yeah, no, it's so nerve-wracking making a film and stuff. And I was just thinking the other day when we sit in the premiere and everyone's actually watching you on the big screen just to see what it's like. It's going to be amazing. But I don't know, maybe to see how this one goes. See if people like it, and if people want another one, then I'm sure we've got the time for that.
Maybe we could repackage the outtakes and make a DVD
with
a free poster
for Christmas. For Christmas.
Now there's an idea. There's an idea.
As a perfect Christmas present, it's
great.
Give out to people at home.
Nothing says "I love you, Dad" like a 1D This Is Us DVD.
Exactly. From Tesco with the stocking. Perfect.
Yeah, $11.99.
After the global success of the One Direction film, the group revealed that they would be releasing a single from the upcoming album, Midnight Memories. The music video for Best Song Ever has so far received over 250 million views on YouTube and features the boys as you've never seen them before.
So after the cameras followed them around for the This Is Us documentary movie, and after them talking on camera about their story and hanging out backstage, it was obvious that for the Best Song Ever video, One Direction really had to change things up, but do something a bit more fun, and that's what they gave their fans. So all 5 lads went into the makeup chair, went into character before they trashed a Hollywood executive room and basically went crazy around some very hot secretaries.
And we danced all night to the best song ever. We knew every line. Now I can't remember how it goes.
They loved making this video. I've spoken to the boys about this video and they just loved every second. Even though they spent hours in makeup with Louis and Niall portraying Hollywood movie moguls, Zayn transforms into a hot secretary. I mean, everybody was talking about how beautiful Zayn looked as a woman, and I think they were very clever with the Best Song Ever video because it proved that several of the members of the band can act and probably would love to do a bit more acting on the side whenever in the future. But overall, such a fun video, and it's a brilliant decision to release it.
Midnight Memories is One Direction's third studio album, released in November 2013 by Columbia Records, Psycho Music, and Sony Music. The album was noted for its different musical style compared to One Direction's previous albums. The album debuted at number 1 on the US Billboard 200, making One Direction the first group in history to debut at number 1 in the US with their first 3 albums.
As soon as One Direction announced that they were releasing their third album, Midnight Memories, at the end of 2013, the Directioners, of course, went online and pre-ordered that album in their thousands, if millions. It became the number 1 digital pre-order album of 2013. Once again, it debuted at number 1 in the UK and in America with huge sales, breaking records. And what was interesting about Midnight Memories is that it demonstrated a more mature sound. The boys, of course, were growing up. They decided to work with some new musicians. They were songwriting themselves. They co-wrote several tracks on the album. The first time that all 5 of them had started to help with the writing process. Liam, Niall and Harry in particular taking a lead on that. Ed Sheeran as well, giving them a track on the album Littlest Things, which was an incredible and really beautiful record. And of course the setup single Story of My Life with that brilliant, very clever but emotional video for the fans and for their families. It was a win-win situation all round.
One Direction kicked off the Where We Are worldwide tour in April 2014, and it's set to become one of the highest-grossing tours of all times.
One Direction chose to launch the Where We Are tour, their third headlining tour, at London's iconic Wembley Stadium, a stadium they would play 9 months later in front of thousands of fans. I mean, they sold out that stadium 3 times over in a matter of minutes. I mean, demand for these tickets were insane. They decided to kick off the tour in 2014 in South America. They played in Colombia, they played in Brazil, they went all over South America, and then they moved back to the UK and hit Europe. I remember seeing that show at Wembley Stadium, and they really injected so much into the performance, into the production. I mean, this is a show and a tour that is potentially going to gross $1 billion worldwide once it wraps up. That is the power of One Direction.
With a brand new album in the pipeline, fans of One Direction won't have to wait too long to hear some new music from their British heroes.
I'm really looking forward to hearing what One Direction do next with their music. I mean, they are potentially going to have to change things up a bit. EDM, electronic dance music, is really the biggest selling music genre in the world right now. And I think the boys want to basically attempt to inject a slice of that into their music. There are rumours that we're going to hear Zayn Malik freestyling and rapping as well. There could be more electro R&B influences on this album. But then with Harry Styles loving his classic rock and loving working with people like Ed Sheeran, we could have more songs like Story of My Life and Littlest Things. I think it's going to be a very interesting album, and it's going to be interesting to see how the fans react to it.
They've taken the world by storm. Since their big break on the X Factor, One Direction have grown into international superstardom and have dominated the music charts all around the world.
I think the next 5 years is going to be absolutely incredible for One Direction, actually. I think the world is their oyster, absolutely. They obviously have to stay good friends. They have to stay trusting, I think, close advisors, not get caught up in the party lifestyle. That's always something that will destroy a boy band, and not get caught up in egos as well.
If One Direction ends today, let's hope it doesn't, but if it ends today, they have already achieved things with their young career that no other band has managed to do since the Beatles in the 1960s. I mean, they are up there now as one of the biggest selling bands of all time. Certainly one of the biggest boy bands, one of the biggest pop acts.
I think it would be a mistake to underestimate the market, the interest, and the appeal of a boy band with 5 Bieber-esque contenders. Each one is good looking, each one has a great voice, each one has a star quality, and you put them all together and it's exponentially incredible, the potential that they have. The reception that this band has found around the world really goes to show that they have a universal appeal. And I don't think that One Direction is going anywhere but up.
For a British band to capture the world, to dominate the American chart, and to dominate social media in the 21st century is a feat in itself. They're all under the age of 25, they're all multi-millionaires, but they also harbour ambition to continue to work in the music industry.
The key thing is going to be, I think, maturing with each album so that they can actually take their audience with them. Because boy bands usually do have a shelf life. So what will be really, I think, fascinating to watch is that after 5 years, are we going to be in a situation where it's like NSYNC, where one very clear star has emerged from the band and there will be a figure like Justin Timberlake who really emerges as a solo star? Could it be Harry Styles? Could it be Liam Payne? Could it be Niall Horan? It would be very interesting to see.
And that's quite incredible to think that they started life off on a TV show, on X Factor, where anything could have happened, considering they were rejected when they entered as solo artists.
They've risen from obscurity to worldwide fame. They are One Direction.